What's up, guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It is Zachary Reality. Give this video a big thumbs up and hit subscribe. Today, I'm going to be giving you guys the full Spark Notes and recap of Rachael Kirkconnell on Call Her Daddy, talking about her breakup with Matt James. I took notes watching the podcast last night, and I'm going to read through all of the notes for you guys pretty quickly so that it is going to give you guys the perfect summary. So let's get right into it, because one day she is okay and feels empowered, and the next day Rachael is so sad as she discusses her breakup. She says Matt broke up with her and shared it online 3 days later. Her friends nominated her for The Bachelor and didn't tell her they did. She got a call when she was in the grocery store in the middle of COVID, a random LA number. She got a text. She was applying for jobs anywhere. So she was like, I don't know whose number this is going to be. I'm going to call these people back, see what they want. She was really just seeing what would happen. She didn't necessarily want to do The Bachelor, but they left her a voicemail. She got back into her car, and someone from The Bachelor said they received an application from her. 3 of her friends filled it out months ago, and she said, I am not doing that. I would probably be the villain. At first, she was like, that sounds crazy. And then she had a call with them and was like, I'm just going to go with the process. And so she started doing interviews, and she still was so nervous about what it could be, but it was COVID. So she was like, let's just see how it goes. And then they announced Matt in June. And that is when she decided to finally consider it, because she felt like Matt was a great guy. And she still thinks that as well. So then she got the okay to go on the show 2 weeks before. She had to get her stuff together. Her friends were in couples, and they used to love watching The Bachelor during Pilot Pete season. So that's why they applied her, because Alex asked. And she was never in an adult serious relationship before The Bachelor. It was a year before that. It was a 6 months relationship, kind of casual, with one of her friends growing up. It was one of those things that she couldn't believe was happening when she got on The Bachelor. She thinks she is boring or not good TV, so she was confused why they wanted her. Walking out of the hotel, she saw Sarah and thought she was screwed because of how gorgeous Sarah was and all of the girls were. She just tried to make it past night 1. She did not think about the engagement because she never thought she would get that far. She thought that there was no way Matt would like her out of all of the women. She said it was total infatuation right off the bat with Matt. She felt a connection immediately, felt very comfortable with him. They were just talking to each other like there wasn't a million cameras, talking about Waffle House. Every conversation they had was like stupid stuff. It was not good TV. It was just very natural and normal conversations. And she says that's probably why her edit was the way that it was. She was always realistic with the show. Right? She was not going to overshare early on the season. That's what she says. She was not going to open up and go too vulnerable too soon. She says that right before the one-on-one that they had, which was the 5th week of filming, so it was very late in the game for a one-on-one, little time they had together, it was so easy, and she hadn't sparked ever with someone else in her life than how she sparked with Matt. And this really solidified that her and Matt were endgame for her at the time. On their one-on-one, she could really see herself with Matt. She was realistic about the fairy tale of the show. She knew she fell hard knowing what the show was. She was just very like aware of what everything was. And she didn't get she knew that Matt wasn't going to propose because an engagement was not on her mind at first. Towards the end, they said they were falling in love. She felt like it was out of her control. She told herself that if she made it to the end, of course, she would say yes. She thought it would be so crazy to get engaged after just a few weeks. They had a conversation off camera about not getting engaged. Maybe the show would convince him. She would say yes, but she did not expect it. During Fantasy Suites off camera, they talked about what the final day would look like. They thought production would have stuff up their sleeve. Chris Harrison went to her room and said Matt does not want to see her. And she knew they were lying, but things were still very heavy. She was confused because producers were going all about breaking down the set as soon as they were leaving because they decided to stay together and not be engaged. So producers were really mad that they did not propose. And it kind of was like a bad ending to their show that they put so much work into. But she thought that it was a very level-headed decision of Matt to wait to get engaged and not do it for the show and for the audience. Like it would be more authentic to do it later, just the two of them. And she even brought up the point how some couples in The Bachelor, they get engaged and then they get re-engaged in the real world, kind of like, JoJo and Jordan did, and a few other couples as well. She said Matt felt so much pressure about how the world was at the time. It was a heavy topic. Her controversy did not help. It was the height of BLM. Strangers and very close people in his life were telling him not to be with her. It hurt her so bad because she felt like he was doing it for others and not himself. He felt so much pressure from everyone. She never held it over his head because she knows he was doing the best, and she stands by him for not staying with her at that time. She was shocked when he broke up with her because they were so happy together behind closed doors, regardless of the chaos around them. They broke up, but they still talked every day. They did not talk for the first few days, but slowly started speaking. She asked him, if you are happy without, are you happy seeing if this is not real? Like, do you want to see if it's real? After the episode aired, there was a big group of people that were mad they weren't together. So many people did support them after all that. And they both had to sit down and talk and put everything aside. And they chatted and said that they wanted to give each other a fair chance. And the first year was hard, but it ended up being great. Alex said that she saw stuff on Reality Steve during the time about their breakup, and she did not get out of bed. She thought Matt was not dating anyone, but Matt was talking to other girls because Reality Steve told Rachel's sister-in-law, her brother's sister, and they told Rachel and Matt, Matt withheld that info that he was talking to other girls during the brief breakup that they had around after the final rose. So she was so mad. She stormed out of his place. She felt bamboozled. Then they go another week without talking. Matt goes to Atlanta and she was at her friend's apartment. And all of a sudden, he checked her location. They were right next to each other. And he texted her to talk and apologize. And they talked in the car for 6 hours. And he explained everything. And she heard him out. He asked for a chance and said, I love you. I want to be with you. Let's get back together. And she gave him a chance because she loved him. She had a hard time trusting him because they had to move on from things with each other from after the final rose, but they both had to forgive each other to move on. So basically they both were like, they both did things to each other. Like they had to put work into this relationship because, you know, both had to overcome things. They had to forgive each other. And I think that's part of being in a relationship for a long time is, you know, forgiveness, right? So let's continue, but I'm just going to drink water for a second. Thank you. So she was so insecure the first year of the relationship because of everything that happened. And there was a power dynamic, an imbalance of power. Matt was always the star and she was always like his groupie. She felt like she was some girl and he was a celeb. And she told herself that everyone hated her and everyone loved him. And it would be Matt James and Rachel. She thought he could have anyone. So why would he go? So when he would go places without her, she thought other girls would hit on him and she was having a hard time trusting him. She says she knows to this day he was not a cheater. That was the only time that happened. 4 years of their relationship because she reposted this random TikTok that she actually reposted before the breakup. So the TikTok she reposted about cheating was before the breakup. They seemed so happy in a new city, new country, trying food. They found and in love all over the world and on Instagram. It was so fun. She went from being a normal girl to all of this famous influencer stuff. The first 2 years, it was so fun dating. They were not in a rush. It felt like a normal relationships. Strangers caring about your relationship was great sometimes, and sometimes it was not. The beginning was chill. Their third year of dating, she asked where this was going. She did not want a surprise. She did want a surprise proposal, but she did want to know where this was heading. And this is where she starts crying because she says it's hard to think about and replaying over and over in your head. The words were there and they talked about taking the next steps, but the actions were not there. They spent 4 years together and they never lived together because he is religious and he said he wanted to wait to move in together when they got married. He had an apartment in New York or Miami and she was in Georgia. They were together all the time. She was making excuses because they traveled often. She was just justifying, but there was a fear of taking the next steps. Georgia was mostly their home base. Looking back, it was a red flag that Matt never signed a lease with her or made it official. She cries again because they did talk about kids and family, and now she does not know what life looks like. She was picturing kids that are no longer a thing. They talked about rings. He told her a few months ago to start looking for stuff and saving things, that the proposal was going to be coming. She was like, wow, he is finally on board. They were no longer able to talk about it. Originally, it was very hard for him to talk about marriage because of where Matt comes from, a broken home. She would bring up the future more, never in a pressure conversation. He said, we can look at rings, and she wanted him to bring it back up if he meant it. So she really was waiting for him to bring up these conversations, even though these were things that she wanted, but she was like withholding it because she didn't want to like bother him. Oh, Rachel. She kind of was like saying that it was taking him forever. And that as a woman, like Alex was like, it's not the man's decision to propose. Like Rachel still needs to have a say. There were times where he felt the weight of marriage heavy on him, but that's up to him to discuss. Rachel said she asked herself, is it me? Is it him? She knows he has childhood trauma. Time will tell. We will have to answer. He will have to answer for himself why it didn't work out. They were both stubborn. They both thought they were in the right. Sometimes they did not see eye to eye. She tried to remind him that they're on the same side and the problem is on the other side. They should be a team. She felt like she was apologizing a lot. She started feeling crazy. He said that she was the one who wouldn't apologize. It would make her feel crazy. She felt like she was the only one taking accountability, but he was so adamant that she was the one who was never taking accountability and never saying sorry. And she wanted to try and believe him. So she believed him that she was the problem. And it always worried her that he always told her she was the one in the wrong. And now looking back, she has to ask herself, was it deserved or not? She would go into conversations irritated with him and then leave the conversation being more concerned if he was irritated with her. She really put this man up here and she really put herself down here. Jan 3rd is when they were together and they had international flight vouchers expiring. So they were in London and they were like, we have to go to Tokyo. It was an unplanned last minute trip and everything was great. The night before, she was so nervous and she was trying to find a place to eat and felt pressure because Matt is a foodie and every place counts. And she asked Matt for help, but he was busy. So he was like, you figure out where we're going to eat because he just didn't have time to pick a restaurant. So she was really finding pressure to go somewhere and they found a dinner spot and it was not a good spot and she cried. She was on her period. She said the dinner was so awkward. They did not talk the whole dinner. She felt like if she would go somewhere and every meal counts when they're on trips as a food influencer. So she just felt it was so important and that she was disappointing him by picking a bad spot and having a bad menu. Then they got to the hotel and she gives him a hug and she could tell he was off, but she was just really confused. And she said she felt like he let her down. He said it was not that serious and it was not a big deal. He found it concerning. She felt like she was being punished for crying. Usually when she was upset, Matt wanted to give her space, but she wanted to be comforted. He would want her to calm down and then they would talk. She wakes up the next morning and it's the breakup. When they went to bed, he was saying it was okay. They let it go and it was fine. The next day, a few days before, they were talking about how he feels lucky to have her as a partner. And that morning, everything was fine. A few days prior, they were so in love, a few arguments opened up a can of worms and they were on their way to get some food. She was on her phone and he was getting bothered by her and he snapped at her. Then she got mad at him. She was like, even if I'm annoying, don't treat me like that. They got into this big fight and then they got to the market and they split up. She went to go get chopsticks and he went to go get matcha. It's not normal for them to split up when they're together on vacation, but she was annoyed but decided not to think too much into it. At that point, they've been nonstop together for 3 weeks. They were just irritated with each other. They've been traveling. It was what it was. They had to get their food, get back in the car. And he said, why are you being so quiet? And she said, I feel like you're irritated with me and I don't want to bug you. She wanted to give him her space. That opened up everything. They got into an argument in the street and got back into the hotel and had a bigger conversation. They both were annoyed and he let out everything he's been feeling, I guess, for a while. And he said that at the end of the day, there were qualities about her that worried him about having her as a wife. There are things that are not compatible about saying sorry, realization. And he said it was not ready. He was not ready for the proposal and he does not know if he's ever going to see himself proposing. And he doesn't know if he can see himself married to her after 4 years. And she says, you really should figure that out. How do you not know after 4 years? You should know by now. She was like, is it really me? Is it someone else? If your perfect person is someone else, that's what she was wondering. He came to the conclusion that his perfect person was not Rachel and he did not want to end up, he did not want to end up wasting more of her time. And he didn't want her to resent him for wasting any more of her time. You're beautiful, smart, funny. You'll find a guy that will love you for you. And I will never say a bad word about you. That's what Matt told her. She was surprised because a few days before it was the opposite. He was telling her he loved her to get ready for the proposal. And he wanted it to work because he loved her. She feels like he really tried, but ultimately Matt made the decision that Rachel is not the right person for him. It's crazy. She is crying more. In the back of her mind, she always wondered if he had doubts. And she also says it was he thinks he loves her. He wanted it to work out, wanted to picture it. It was the next step. He does not think she is the person for him. He was trying to get there, but could not. She still does not know if he reacted out of anger or spite. If he did not post it so publicly, so quickly, she does not know where she would be today. She would not be doing Call Her Daddy. She was like, I have to give it up and accept that it's over after he said all those things to her. She is crying more. In the back of her mind, she always wondered if he had doubts. She had those doubts because of the actions that were never there. She wants to be with someone who is excited to be with her. She was nervous because he did not want to end up like, because she thought he did not want to end up like his father or come from a broken home. Sometimes that is a hindrance. Sometimes that was a hindrance on their relationship. Is it something about her, or is it something that Matt has never been able to work through because of his childhood trauma? It ended with, I'm saying you will find someone. I will never say a bad thing about you, but we are done. She went to the lobby because she had to leave for the day early for a baby shower, and he knew that she was leaving. He knew she was going to the airport, so she did not know what was happening. So what's so sad is after what he said, she was glad he was at least honest. If that's how he really felt, it's valid for him to have those feelings. But she got to the airport and checked her bags and got on her flight. Her phone can't connect to plane Wi-Fi because of a VPN that she had. So she was about to turn off her phone for the flight, but then her phone starts blowing up and she gets a text from her friend. It says Rach with multiple question marks. And then Rachel is like, how do you know? Like, is this real life? Like, how would you know? And she was like, is this real life? Like, looking at the Instagram post, and Rachel goes to the Instagram post and is shocked to see this. She's like, wait, how is the world seeing this? And then all of a sudden she's in the air and her phone is no longer working. She's not able to get in contact with literally anyone. And she's on this flight for 12 hours, having the most anxiety she's ever had in her entire life. And then she has to land in Atlanta. She did not end up going to the baby shower. She said the caption was interesting and weird. Well, that's what Alex Cooper said. It's like a prayer. And Rachel said it's easier than saying a prayer than saying if it was real or authentic, like almost like he was hiding behind this prayer. She's not surprised that he said it like that because that's so Matt, but she was more surprised that he posted it so soon, 2 to 3 hours after their breakup. Like, did he think that that she was on the plane? Maybe he needed to post that to put the nail in the coffin. She has spoken to him since that. They spoke 4 to 5 days later, and Matt has acknowledged to Rachel that it was not the right decision for him to post the breakup on Instagram. She thought people would celebrate after 4 years. She thought the fans would be like, yay, he finally left her. He did not even text her to give her a warning that he was posting that, and that's how her family and friends found out. That's how her little sister found out. Like, she didn't even get a day to grieve privately. Landing was so scary. She landed and had her car at the airport and was driving home, and it had been 12 hours. All of her friends were waiting all day to hear from her, to get a response. She did a voice memo. She went straight home and went to sleep. And she felt like it was the best thing she could do at the time. She did not want to text him back or talk to him because he did not give her the decency to let her know the post was coming. She was sleeping for 48 hours, and then all of a sudden her sister came into her house because her sister has a key to her house and hung out with her for the next few days. And she finally told her friends she would see them. She was not ready to debrief for a while. The only person she would want to talk to was Matt, but he is the one person that hurt her. She woke up to a call 4 to 5 days later at 1 a.m. and she called him back. He asked how she was doing. She confronted him about the post, and that's when he says, it sucks. I should have handled it better. I'm so sorry. She does not want people thinking that he is a bad guy because she thinks he is a great guy, but he made a mistake posting it and he regrets it. She wouldn't be sitting here on Call Her Daddy if he did not post it. Bachelor Nation is very strong. She left things saying that things were okay. She asked him, how his day was in Tokyo, what his last day was. He told her, what he did on the rest of his trip. They haven't talked a lot. He has called her every few days to make sure she is okay. And she told him not to do that. So he's been checking on her. He's been feeling guilty, but it seems like Matt has kind of wanted to break up with her for a bit. And it's just because Matt realized that he isn't her person. Rachel says she doesn't think she can go back with him because once someone says the things they say to you, you have to call it quits. She says that she forgives him for the post, but she cannot be with him after disrespecting her like that over the post. She has to stand up for herself, and part of her wishes she can get back together and pretend none of this happened. But as hard as the decision is, she has to be on her own. Alex Cooper thinks that she will look back at this and be proud, and she said that she had an attachment to him, and it sucks now to see how things ended, and it's so heartbreaking. Maybe she compromised her values at times, and it was pulling teeth to get him to come to a wedding or do certain things. He was the one in charge, and he took the lead, and she just wanted to support him through everything, and she did not mind letting him have the spotlight. She had to beg him to do things. Her friends realized that she was putting more into the relationship than he was. It was never 50-50. She wanted to go and call her daddy because Alex Cooper reached out and she thought about it and felt like it was needed a longer conversation than a story or a caption. And she wanted to get closure and do it for the fans who cared and they were so supportive. She wanted to get the true story out there to help herself move on. And after 4 years, something needed to be said. She wanted the closure. She does not want people thinking he ever cheated. It's fun to tell herself that she can find herself again, find her confidence again. She needs to work through things through the show and the guilt that he calls now to check on her. Okay. So, wow, that was the full recap, 20 minutes. Sorry if I stuttered a little bit. It seems like Rachel and Matt's relationship was just not what it seemed on Instagram. It seemed like he was in charge, he was calling the shots, and Rachel, was kind of just the supportive partner. And I guess she was, yeah, it has to be even, guys. It has to be even. And Rachel, I didn't know that she was so insecure in this relationship the whole time. I mean, she's so beautiful. She's so trendy. She's one of the more fun people in Bachelor Nation to follow just because she has really like trendy, artsy content. So I just didn't know that there was such a power imbalance because The Bachelor happened so long ago. And I guess that's how they met. And it really set the tone for their relationship. So I'm glad that they broke up because clearly after hearing all of this, they weren't meant to be together. But it's interesting to mourn the relationship as a fan because they seemed so perfect. So now like everything Rachel said was just such a surprise. I had no idea their relationship was like this. Even on other podcasts and all of Matt's comments, like it just seemed like Matt wasn't truly being authentic and honest in the relationship, but Rachel was. And Rachel was trying to, but he just wouldn't commit. So it seems like Matt, is going to find another girl and hopefully Rachel finds someone that is going to really treat her like the prize and have it be 50-50. You want to be on the same playing field as your partner. So those are my recaps. Those are my notes. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you're listening as a podcast, give this podcast 5 stars. Please rate, review, and subscribe. Follow Zachary Reality on Instagram and TikTok. And stay tuned, guys, because I'm heading to New York today and I'm interviewing the cast of The Traitors season 3 tomorrow. So super exciting interviews coming with a bunch of the Traitors and the Faithfuls. Can't wait to share those. Okay, guys, I gotta go. Gotta finish packing. Bye. See you later.